Um, okay. Ira, I was unable to be there at the first meeting, but I heard grand reviews from many of the members about how well you did on the judging. So we're very honored to have you back tonight to do the prints. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for your patience and tolerance with me when it comes to scoring. And tonight I will endeavor to be a little more efficient because I actually made notes and scores ahead of time based on looking at the prints. A lot of wonderful work. So thank you for having me. For tonight, I'm wondering if somebody else could share their screen and pull up the images as we go through them. That way I'll be able to look at my notes that I've made, which I think will work a little more efficiently.
Colleen, do you have them?
No, I do not. All I get is the score sheet.
Tamara, can you do that?
You need the link, the Google link.
You know what? I can send you the link.
I'm having some problems with my computer, Dorothy, and I'm not on my typical computer. Otherwise, I would totally volunteer to.
Here, I just sent John the link to the file. Oh, you know what? Actually, let me do this. Let's see. Give me just 1 second here.
Just get with it.
Okay, John, I just sent you the link to the shared
Okay.
folder.
Okay, I'll open that up. Okay, let's see, where do we want to start? I'm looking at, let's see.
Start with general color, John.
Okay, I'm in something that's just, I must be, oh, I'm in Prince general color.
Yes.
Okay,
First
do
picture.
this and see if I can, I got to share my screen here though.
And I'm going to mute everybody. Ira, you need to unmute yourself in just a
Okay.
minute here.
Okay,
Okay, John, you're muted also.
So does John have permission to share his screen? You can make him a co-host.
He should be able to share it.
Okay,
whoop,
there you go.
I'm trying to, let's see, Google Chrome unknown, maybe that's what I want to do. Whoop. Am I sharing my screen yet or not? Let's see.
No.
No.
Okay, hang on, there we go. It keeps wanting me to open my preferences here. I've got this big picture of an apple here, but I don't know quite, must not be sharing it somehow.
Not yet.
Okay, come on. I got so many screens open now. Nobody sees it yet though, huh?
Have you tried sharing? Hit the green button
Yeah,
in Zoom.
yeah. And then I get a choice, whiteboard or Google Chrome unknown.
You know what? Just go desktop, and that way you can then click on your screen with the images, and it'll share it automatically.
Now, what do you mean go desktop here? I don't know. Well,
Are you on a PC or a Mac?
Mac.
Yeah, so.
Oh, I
you-
see what you mean. Whoop,
Yeah,
I get that. Well, where the heck did they go? My preferences were here a second ago. Ah,
we're missing Dennis, aren't we?
I know it. I keep
Yes.
trying to open preferences, but it's like nothing's coming up. Share sound, advanced files.
You know what? I'll share. I think I can figure out how to share it in such a way that I can keep my scoring sheets separate.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna do prints, general color,
Yes,
and start, and Colleen, do you want to start with the apple for the teacher?
correct.
Okay. All right, so obviously this has a high impact composition because it's using a bold, simple design of the apple. It's bright red and vibrant. And it's standing out because of the shallow depth of field. I do want to point out that you have two different color diffused in specular highlights. This is a warm coloration here, which indicates a tungsten bulb or an interior incandescent light. And then we have this really bluish cast here that would indicate a window light coming through. And so to me, if there was one technical glitch with this image, is this area right in here. I would want to put some sort of diffusion material to block that out just a little bit, to be able to really just focus on this warmer diffuse specular highlight that's in alignment with the yellow and everything else going on. It is a high impact image, but I do think it's maybe too shallow depth of field because we're losing the context of the classroom. I'm seeing an apple with what looks like an old metal piece of metal. And so when I think about the title of it being Apple for the Teacher, I'm losing just a little bit of that context there that I'd like to see a little bit more of. But the big thing for me is just to watch out for this little cold hot spot, because everything else has that nice warm light there. Scoring for this is a composition score of 4, impact 4, and technical 4.
Apple for the Teacher by Tamara McGee, 12 points. Aspen,
So this image immediately reminds me of the artwork of Bev Doolittle. I half expect to see an animal or a person kind of wandering through the scene. It's a lovely pattern image that can really induce a strong emotional reaction to it. I find that the diagonal line here is a really nice break to the monotony of all the verticals. And I find myself thinking that this composition would work just a little bit better if it was cropped as an 8x10 from the top down, which would pull the bottom of the frame up just a little bit, which would help settle it. Because right now I'm really torn. I'm bouncing up and down between the top frame and the bottom frame when my mind really wants to settle where that diagonal is and just be in kind of a Zen state within this meditative pattern that can be so relaxing. So I would just crop it from the bottom into an 8x10 proportion. Scoring on this is 4 for composition, 4 for impact, and 5 for technical. I think it is handled extremely well.
Aspen by John Lepper, 13 points. Choosing a partner,
So this one's an interesting, I almost want to go get the print out because I'm noticing the words more in the digital version than I did in the actual physical print. But that said, it's kind of an interesting, the word available looks like the word available in the foreground, but it's kind of this weird psychedelic color that the orange and the greens and yellow kind of remind me of poison a little bit. So I get kind of that Mr. Yuck sticker feel to it a little bit. But I am really fascinated. You know, it kind of goes with Halloween, so it makes me think of a Halloween party. I want to see a little bit more up above at the top of the frame, because to me, what this is really about is the relationship of hand holding in a line, and this kind of people holding hands and doing some line dancing or something together. So I find that the magic of the image for me is up a little bit above where the frame is. So I would probably crop that in slightly because I don't think we need the word to be completely visible to get the word. We could crop in a little bit and it'd make the mind work a little bit further on this image. Choosing a partner, composition score of 3, impact 4, technical 4.
Choosing a Partner by John Lepper, 11 points. Petrified Forest.
This, you know, this is so interesting to see this image on the screen compared to the actual physical print. You'll definitely want to check out the print. And in fact, I think the composition of the digital image is cropped in a little tighter than it is on the actual print. And the color saturation of the print is magnificent. It's really, really a lovely, lovely image in person. I think it's a really nice image of color, patterns, and space. And really, when you stand back from the print, you really get the sense of space. Like you could see a human element being drawn to it, or a gecko. And really what I found myself thinking is it's just missing that human or animal element, or even a plant element to juxtapose with the rocks. Without that juxtaposition, it's really an image about pattern as opposed to having a strong subject matter. Score wise, I think it's composed really well. The spatial arrangement, when you see it in print, is really, really great. So I'll give that a 4, impact 3, and then the technical I think is beautiful. I think it's 5. I thought it was just really well done.
All right, Petrified Forest by Donald Burnell, 12 points. Rocky Shores.
I am always drawn to stacks of rocks from the days of route finding on mountain trails and just seeing those marks. They're lovely. I'm also really impressed with the juxtaposition of all the rocks on the shore with the rock here. I'm impressed that the maker was considerate about the use of the negative space of the highlight of the reflection of the clouds on the water that surround that. We do have a contour merger at the very tip. So I feel like if we could have raised the camera up a little bit just to keep this all contained within that highlight, would have been a little bit stronger composition. Or the other option would be to try to get lower and experiment with the relationship between this one rock and those many rocks. And again, this reminds me of the classic Ansel Adams image where you see the mountains in the background and a big boulder in the foreground, and that relationship of the near far. This maker did a really nice job on the overall composition. Let's see, what's the name of this one again?
Rocky Shores.
Okay, Rocky Shores. Oh, there it is. 5 for composition, 3 for impact, and 3 for technical. And the reason the technical, the background on the print, you don't see it in this digital screen image as much, but on the background has been burned a little too dark. And I think the foreground could use a little toning down, a little burning down, just to really pull the eye into the image a little bit further.
So Rocky Shores by Elaine Giadoni, 11 points. Something Old, Something Blue.
And again, it's really interesting. Usually I would say that screen images tend to be a little more saturated than the prints, but this is the second example of you really have to see this print in person. It's stunning, stunning print. And it really highlights the power of abstract imagery to really have an impact on the human spirit, that abstract art really allows us to experience emotion in a non-verbal way. There's no words to really describe it. And if I look hard enough, I'll pay attention to this being a hinge and think of this as potentially a rusty door. But that's really not what the maker wants you to focus on. To me, it starts looking at the kind of the scratches almost become like marks that you would see on a landscape from a satellite photo. The colors are just spectacular, and you really need to see the colors in person because it's really, really lovely. Something old, something new is simply beautiful. Composition, I'll give it a 4, impact 5, and technical 5.
Something Old, Something Blue by John Stokeham, 14 points. Whistlers,
So this is an image. It's an interesting subject matter just because if you're into anything mechanical, you start paying attention to all these fittings. You get a sense of the whistle in here. Unfortunately, the print and even the screen image feels very flat. It seems like maybe this was in shadow and there was some HDR attempted, because you see the sky is really nicely saturated, beautiful sky in the blues here, but there's something just flat in this area here that just lacks that depth and dimension that I know this shiny metal whistle would have. And so the other thing is it's starting to feel a little monochromatic because the blues are so heavy. And this is where I would attempt to do what's called color grading, where you let the shadows go a little bit to the blue and let the highlights stay in the warm area. And that's where this brass, the yellow, would stay really pop really nice. And we'd maybe get a little more color separation that would kind of add some depth to it. Another good trick to do with this is to take the, in Photoshop, use a black and white adjustment layer and adjust it to where it looks great in black and white, and then change that layer mode to luminosity. And that'll allow you to really adjust the tones of the color images to add more depth to it without disturbing the overall color balance. And so you just change the luminosity. And that's why, for me, I tend to set my camera to monochrome, even though I'm shooting in RAW, because I can see the luminosity. And then if I've got the luminosity right, I know the color contrast will be right too. So whistles, let's see here. I gotta find this one. I'm pretty sure I had this. Let's see here. Oh, I guess I somehow managed to omit it. It was, I apologize. I'm going to have to go ahead. I just looked at it recently, so I'll go ahead and score it on the fly. I'll type it out here. So I'm going to give that a 3 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 3 for technical.
Whistlers by John Burnell, 10 points. All right, we're moving on to print general monochrome. And first one should be Dan.
Okay. Spectacular image. Very, very, and again, the print is just so rich and well done tonality wise. What's magical is the way that you get this. This is a very flat profile that is then added the depth with reflection, and you see the shadowing, and you get this positive, negative, positive, and then you even get some context in there of framed artwork on the wall behind this person. You really are paying attention to the eagle eye right here. The only thing that I really would like to see is a little more room in the frame for a little bit more of this collar line below the neck, because I feel like the light value is bleeding out of the edge of the frame. And I like to hold that in a little bit more by having the dark color supporting that head a little bit. It feels like it's a little bit of a guillotine shot where it's cropped just a little too tight on the neck. That said, though, it's a spectacular image. I'm going to give it a 4 for composition. And when you see the print, you'll understand why it has a 5 for impact and a 5 for technical. The one other thing I would say is I'd come in and retouch to create the edge of the iris of the eye, fill that in where that specular highlight is bleeding across the white of the eye into the iris. I would just define that eye just a little more clearly.
Dan by John Lepper, 14 points. Leaning Ladder of Spokane.
This is a really nice minimalist image. It's really strong in terms of its shape and line. And it even has the texture with the foreground dirt and rock right down here. So you've got this juxtaposition of really textured to really smooth and flat, really strong lines, nice diagonals created by the shadow. It's a little muddy. It could be just a little more contrasty to pull out the richness of what you have here. Other than that, it's exquisite. Give it a 5 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 3 for technical. Just needs a little bit more work on the tone scale.
Leaning Ladder of Spokane by John Stockham, 12 points. Looking Up the Tracks.
So this is one where the screen image and the print are very much in alignment. They look very, very similar to one another. It's a very dynamic, high energy image because of all the contrast, all the lines. It's got strong linear perspective. It's got some nice graffiti. Yes, I said nice and graffiti in the same sentence, because that's what gives the human element to this image. There's nothing here, and yet there is evidence of something here. You've got the number 13. You've got this nice signature graffiti here. The challenge with this image is the maker needs to desaturate the image because you've got some serious noise that's turned purple. You have chromatic aberrations going on here. You're getting color separation in there. And so I would really recommend just desaturating the whole thing. And then the other thing is when you have noise like this, then I might be tempted to add film grain noise to the whole image to just give it that gritty, edgy feel to it that I think this image could tolerate. I think it's would have no problem with that. Okay, Looking Up the Tracks. I give it a 5 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 3 for technical.
Looking Up the Tracks by Donald Burnell, 12 points. Old West Oasis.
So there's a subtle difference between the print as it's displayed and the way it's displayed here. There's a border treatment happening here that I don't recall seeing on the print because it's in a nice clean matte. The print has a richness of tone that's interesting in that there's it feels like it's taken potentially with a long telephoto lens, which gives me, I love that because it flattens out. The background really is almost on top of this structure here. That it reminds me of a Grandma Moses painting or a Japanese woodblock print, and that flattening out effect, which really emphasizes the texture of the wood and the texture up here. On the print, it's not a problem in the digital file. I see good tone separation, but what happens on the print is the blacks and the shadows went too dark, and they started merging together into becoming really deep blacks with no texture detail in this area here. So that was problematic for me. Also, I did find myself wondering why we couldn't leave just a little bit more room to maybe get the entire tree to get that sense of isolation, because I think The storytelling quality of this image is really the fact that somebody took the time to build this structure, and in these kind of farmland, scrablands, you only see trees where people planted them to have shade. Otherwise, it's just open grassland, open fields, and the trees are really the only thing that shelters you from what feels like this overwhelming sense of heat and challenging lifestyle that's in this place. So I'd like to open up the frame. You do a little more what we call closed framing, where you can see the entire tree and structure together, and also maybe see a little bit more of this rich, beautiful textured background. Okay, what's the name of this one again?
Old West Oasis.
Okay. Old West Oasis. 3 for composition, 4 for impact, and 3 for technical.
Old West Oasis by Elaine Giadoni, 10 points.
Okay, where are we going next?
What a Puget Sound.
This digital file does not do justice to the magnificent print that the maker made. They invested a little bit more and made a very large print. I think it's like a 20 by 24. And sometimes when you have complexity in an image with a lot of parts to it, larger really helps translate that effectively. And so the print was absolutely lovely. It's got a beautiful curve in here. You've got the reflection of the cool water here, and you have the juxtaposition of the dead tree, which the roots are still out there, and the trees that are still living and still growing out of the ground. You see the potential that these roots might be underwater at some points with high tide. But it's just really quite a lovely image, very delicate. You are close to the edge, but you controlled it. I do wonder about whether or not having it a little bit wider to keep the tops of these trees might have been beneficial. But that said, it's really a strong image overall. So Puget Sound is, looking for my notes, 5 for composition, 5 for impact, 3 for technical. And the reason I kind of dinged it on the technical is it's a little over sharpened. There's just a little too grittiness on the print.
Puget Sound by John McLaughlin, 13 points. Rushing Water.
Lovely idea, lovely patterns in the rocks, lovely water. It's interesting, you can even see it on the monitor, the screen image. The water actually has a little bit of a blue tone in this area right here. It's not completely monochrome. They've left a little bit of blue. I found that a little problematic unless there was a little more color into it overall, but I think with the category it's in, it should be desaturated. The tone scale feels a little muddy. There's some nice blacks, but the mid-tones could be brought out just a little bit more. I think a little more finesse on dodging these areas in here. The water is good. It's a little gray down here, but it's really lovely in this area here. I just think that overall it's just a little bit flat. And there's more that could be done with it technically. Composition, give it a 4, impact 3, and technical 4.
Rushing Water by Donald Burnell, 11 points. The Old Homestead.
So this image is has really precise technique in the post-production. The tone scale on the print very closely matches the tone scale on the screen. And that's a great handling of a full range of values, from the dark shadows with some detail in here to the really bright highlights. This reminds me of studying the zone system and looking at zone system sample prints to learn that tone scale. The composition is very horizontal. It's a slightly out of balance in that the edge, the distance between this edge and this edge is not the same. So it's a static composition in terms of everything moves left to right. But yet there's a little, it's thrown out of balance here. And I find myself wanting to encourage the maker to go back and experiment with techniques that Walker Evans and Dorothea Lange use, which is to really play with the two-dimensional flatness a little bit further by maybe shooting a little even more straight on, like maybe didn't take it far enough to where we might play with the idea of it being like one of those fake Old West movie sets where they just have front walls to it. If you look at Walker Evans' work in the South during the Farm Service Administration in the 30s, recently I was looking at Dorothea Lange's work down in North Carolina. I didn't even know she'd been down in North Carolina, and she was photographing tobacco barns, and they're just really powerful images. This image reminds me of the movie HUD. There's just that desolate quality to it. I really love this area right in here. And I guess that's the other part. I feel like there's two images in here. There's the tree and the relationship to the front of the house and this structure here. And then there's this outbuilding that's sinking into the grass that I almost want to, because of that stovepipe, I just kind of want to either just isolate it a little bit more to really pay attention to that. I don't know. It's a beautiful image. It's haunting, but it is a little static for me. The Old Homestead, I give it a 4 for composition and a 4 for impact and a 5 for technical.
All right. The Old Homestead by Dorothy Detler, 13 points. Welcome Home.
So here's an example where the maker essentially did something comparable to Walker Evans, although not showing the whole front of the building, but definitely focusing on the doorway, focusing on the light fixture. I love that the numbers are low instead of up high, where you're maybe more accustomed to seeing it. The tone range on this print is beautiful. We got a little bit of a strange kind of halo dodge burn thing going up here. I'm not really sure what's causing that kind of muddy, slightly darkened area here. But it was not noticeable on the print. I'm noticing more on the digital than I did on the print. I think it's really well done. It is waiting for somebody or some animal to be on these steps. I'm waiting for the kid to be sitting on this step. It's kind of an ominous building to it as well. Welcome Home, give it a 5 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 4 for technical.
Welcome Home by Tamara McGee, 13 points. Okay, we're moving on into print subject color. And Courage Tested would be our first one.
Okay, so what's interesting is to look at the digital after looking at the print, because the note I made in the print was great composition, really love the angle of view being a little bit lower, really brings you to the child on the bridge, and then you really see the progression of a family, a child, looks like a mother and another parent holding a child and somebody in the way back. So there's this nice movement through the frame. The print comes out a little bit darker than this. And in some ways I like it a little bit better. I like the saturation of this, but I thought the print was just a little more graphic quality to it, because there's nothing in here that's adding to the image. You can see this negative space really pops that area here. So I think the print actually did a nice job with letting those shadow values go just a little bit darker. I'd like to keep a little more openness on the people though. So that was just a little bit of finesse there would be great. Courage tested, 5 for composition, 4 for impact, and 3 for technical.
Courage tested by Kevin Watt. Oh, boy.
What did I do?
Nothing. It's something Dennis didn't do for me. 9, 10, 11, 12 points. Means I have to add.
Ah,
All right, Dreamweaver.
it's a very delicate and really quite an exquisite print. The only thing on the print is I would like to get this translucency to the spider. The spider goes a little bit dark. I think overall, if we could get a little bit closer to this, combined with just the pure detail and pure joy of looking at the detail on a print, it's really sweet. You can see every little water droplet, every little webbing. It's just really a lovely image. In terms of composition, I'd like to maybe come in a slightly tighter on this image because this area down here isn't doing anything. All the magic is happening up in here. And so I would probably crop this in just a little bit more and maybe try to create an asymmetrical radial balance composition with that. That said, Dreamweaver gets a 4 for composition, what happened here? 5 for impact and a 4 for technical.
Dreamweaver by Elaine Giordani, 13 points.
By the way, it's ginger beer. Okay, what's going on here?
Kites Aloft.
So I'm guessing it's a drone photograph, or somebody's in a hot air balloon. I'd like to think they were in the hot air balloon. That'd be more fun. But it reminds me of the first time I saw an aerial image of camels in a desert in National Geographic, and all you could see was the shadow of the camels. And it's something mesmerizing in this. It's interesting, the print has a different cropping than this digital file. The print, I believe, has the shadow on this bottom right one cropped in to the edge, and I found that problematic. Overall, I just wanted to have a little more space because I really love the V shape that's created by the shadows in relation to the kites, and also a little bit more room for the front of this vehicle here. It's a really interesting composition, colorful, beautiful color. And, you know, with the way the sand is, it gives the illusion of a panning shot. Like, you know, if you were to just crop in on just a couple of these kites, you'd feel like they're moving really fast because of the way the texture and the ground is almost like a blurred panning shot. It's really, really a lovely image. I think the print and even this needs just a little bit more room around it. Okay, this one is, what's it called again?
Kites Aloft.
Kites Aloft. There they are. 3 for composition, 4 for impact, and 4 for technical.
Kites Aloft by Tim McGee, 11 points. Portal.
So I wonder sometimes whether people are putting in their digital image before they print, or they're photographing their print. I think in this case, maybe the maker photographed the print. And the print has looks even nicer than this. It's really a lovely, lovely print. The tone range and handling of that is extremely well done. The areas that I would look for some improvement is use of hyperfocal distance, if possible, to make it so that all the text that goes along here is readable. Hard to see it in the digital file here, but in the print, you could definitely see it. And I would have been able to read it if there was a little bit more depth of field available to that along that plane. And so I find myself thinking hyperfocal distance, which is really hard to do with modern lenses. It's easier to do with prime lenses on a wide angle where you actually have manual focus and a depth of field scale. Most autofocus lenses these days don't have a depth of field scale to be able to easily set hyperfocal distance. The other thing I would be paying attention to is, and I don't know the location specifically, so I can't pass judgment on this, but there's a term called interval, which is the space around the negative space around elements within the frame. And I found myself wondering if the real relationship would be about the geometric structures of the high-rise buildings fitting into the triangle shapes of the open negative space on this bridge. I think the maker was really focused on this area in the background, but I think we might have missed an opportunity with really the relationship of the triangles with the buildings and just maybe using it as a framing element on there. Otherwise, this is really cool as a linear perspective, and I just want somebody to walk in the distance coming towards the camera. Okay, this one is
Portal.
Portal. Give it a 4 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 3 for technical.
Portal by Kim Barbie, 11 points. Road to Salvation.
Lovely, lovely composition. Lovely handling of the color. The challenge on the print, I mean, it has an HDR feel to it, but the challenge on the print is the sky. There's a really halo effect happening where the sky merges with the tree. What I try to do, there's 2 things that we need to do. And one is, if you're working in RAW, make sure you use the lens correction features to correct for chromatic aberration and perspective control. That if Lightroom, if you're working with Lightroom or Camera Raw, if it recognizes your lens, you'll be amazed at what it will do to keep this kind of this halo effect from happening when you do your dodge burn. It's just one little thing that gets overlooked. That said, what I will do, if I've made my burn of the sky and I've got this halo, I'll make a new layer and I will put it in darken layer mode, and I will clone in just right next to the halo and darken it in and get that to blend in a little bit more. On the print, this top of the roof and this cross gets really too dark. It gets a little muddy in there. And I think when the whole point is this is a church steeple leading to a cross, I don't want the cross to be muddy. So that was problematic for me. But I do think Dorothy and Toto were heading to church this day, and it is a lovely image. Okay, and that one is Road to Salvation. Give it a 5 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 3 for technical.
Road to Salvation by Donna Larson, 12 points. The river runs through it.
Well, somebody else agrees with me. I think this is the more interesting viewpoint down at Palouse Falls, because it's what actually reminds me the most of the Grand Canyon. I mean, it's just such a, I'm assuming this Palouse Falls looks very, very similar to photographs I've made down there. And I always found that direction to be more interesting to me. And the print actually is much nicer than this digital representation of it. It's got beautiful contrast in it, maybe a little hot in here. And that's where I would encourage the maker to underexpose slightly in your digital camera. And you can always pull those highlights out, and you don't really need as much shadow detail in this as you have. You could let this go even a little bit deeper, but keep the rich highlight value. So this area here on the print is a little hot. This area of the print here is hot as well, but more problematic is the fact that it's blurry. And it feels like in the, again, if we had hyperfocal distance, we would be able to make a composition. The other day I was working with a 24mm lens, and at f/22, I could have everything from 7 feet in front of me to infinity in acceptably sharp focus. And I think this image calls for it, so that we don't get distracted by the blurriness here, because really this is the experience of the sublime, is to present, to imagine ourselves standing on this precipice overlooking this beautiful, and it's being so beautiful that you realize that your own mortality, that you could just fall in. And so we need to keep this a little bit sharper. If we don't have hyperfocal distance and we can't compose it to be sharp in the camera, then we need to use focus stacking, since that is a tool that we have available to us, and it works very well. The other thing that we can do is, for a scene like this, I generally won't take it with a single frame anymore. If I'm shooting digitally, I'll take it with 4 to 6 vertical panoramas stitched together, and then recompose it in post-production. And I think that would maybe help hold that foreground, and maybe even give me a little bit more to work with. Okay, name of this one again?
The river runs through it.
4 for composition, 4 for impact, 4 for technical.
The river runs through it by Dorothy Datler, 12 points. Okay. Oh, through the burn.
Very dramatic. Yeah, very dramatic image. It feels a little like just my biofeedback, I can just feel my pulse get a little tense looking at this image. And I'm surprised by that, just because the repetition of the stillness of the dead standing timber, and then the green behind it, I'd expect me to be a little more relaxed when looking at this, but I'm not. And I think it's because it's a little hot. It's just a little blown out in the highlights. And the other thing is, I find myself, when I looked at the print, the magic for me was 2 areas. It was the mountain in the background and the trail inviting me to it. And I found myself thinking that they were in competition with one another because of the horizontal format. And I wanted to consider what it would be like to have a vertical format that really focused on the relationship between this peak and this trail, and give us a little bit more foreground to lead us into that trail. There'd be something to experiment with. Or the other option is, again, to do that vertical panorama and hold a little bit more of that foreground, and then stitch together and recrop in post-production. But big thing is, it just feels a little, I would underexpose this in the camera. In the print, this dark blue is lovely, but this turns into a really cyan color, to where it's got a strange color shift. And it made me think about the value of using polarizers on camera, and not pushing that saturation too far in post-production, where you get those weird posterization effects of just a color shift. That really, that blue, you see the powder blue here, but you don't want that super saturated, overdriven cyan in this image, because it starts to take on that kind of surreal quality to it. Through the burn. There it is. 3 for composition, 4 for impact, 4 for technical.
Through the burn by Donna Larson, 11 points. Tracks in the mist.
Well, the title tells you what the maker was thinking about. And I find myself wanting to focus a little bit more on the mist. the tracks coming together here didn't do as much for me because it destroyed the linear perspective. I found myself wanting this to be cropped in, maybe more of a panorama feel to it, by cropping in along this top, bottom third, crop off the bottom third and bring the whole cloud in. Then I'd have the linear perspective of the two trails converging towards the mist and the clouds. Just some things that I was thinking about. I'd also maybe play with a little bit of clarity, just to get a little bit more resolution or a little more depth in the foreground area. You don't want to lose the mistiness up here, so you'd have to use it as an adjustment brush to just bring out a little bit more. Other than that, it's a lovely image. Tracks into the mist, composition 3, impact 3, technical 5. The print was beautifully executed in terms of color.
Tracks into the Mist by Dorothy Detler, 11 points. Trail to Mary Mere Falls.
Yeah, unfortunately, the name is not what we're seeing. There is no falls at the end of it. And so I find myself, this is a linear perspective. We've all taken this shot, but it's a photograph that is missing a focal point for the eye to settle on. I mean, maybe I settle on this tree trunk here, but in the print's very dark, much darker than this image here. So it gets a little muddy in there. And so it's like I have a lot of empty space and nothing for my eye to really sit on a whole lot. I find myself thinking that the shot might have been better on the bridge looking at the water up or down the river. You see the water here, or we needed the hiker to cross that bridge. We needed to maybe see, and I don't want to see the whole hiker, maybe just see the foot going across the bridge as a more interesting composition. Trail to Marimere, composition 4, impact 3, and technical 3.
Trail to Mary Mere Falls by Kevin Watt, 10 points. Upper Yellowstone Falls.
So this one I looked at multiple times because, to be frank, I think the graphic composition is beautiful. I think the maker arranged the elements in the frame exquisitely. I just think they took it at the wrong time of day. It is very flat and it's very, very washy, just very, there's tone mergers happening because you're baking in this bright area here. And yet we've burned the sky in and did a nice job on the sky. The water looks great. You really get this. I love the family of trees that went on vacation and went to a national park, and they're standing there watching the sights. Very photogenic site. And so I really love the tree composition. I love the flatness of it in terms of spatial depth, but I find myself feeling like the tone range, the luminosity would benefit from a different time of day, or I'd like to maybe just see what we could do to play with the color mapping. Maybe this is a case of we needed to use a blue filter to block the yellow and and play with the greens. I don't know, but it's composition's exquisite. The luminosity is problematic for me. Upper Yellowstone Falls, composition 4, impact 3, technical 3.
Upper Yellowstone Falls by Tamara McGee, 10 points. Where the Path Takes You.
So this one's hard for me just because it's such a Spokane institution. that I think it's very hard to say something creative with an iconic location like this without some temporal element of a person walking through the frame, or I'm waiting for the bride and groom to come down. It's very, very technically symmetrical. It's well composed compositionally. It's just missing that strong aha moment. Perhaps the clouds is about showing the relationship between rain and flowers. Perhaps on the print it goes a little dark, and the print feels a little gray overall. And I think maybe even just punching up the color vibrance in the garden area to contrast against the sky, and maybe making that sky go a little more gray would maybe give me a little bit more something going on there. Yeah, this is a hard one for me, because it's like, how do you say something original when it's something that we all have photographed? Okay, let's see. Where the path takes you: composition 4, impact 4, technical 3. And the print was just a little bit flat and muddy.
Hold on just a minute. Grubhub just came up on my thing. Oh, hold on.
You're sending me food?
Do I wish? No. I don't know where that came from. Let me get back to my score sheet. Almost there.
I feel like we're moving a little faster this time, aren't we?
We're doing great.
Yeah.
Doing great. Okay.
Maybe I should take notes ahead of time more often.
Okay. So there we go. All right. So where the path takes you, what were those scores again, please?
4, 4, and 3.
Okay.
It's a code to a padlock.
Where the Path Takes You by John Stokeham, 11 points. So we're now moving into subject monochrome. First one is cables.
Very well composed graphic image. I did find it interesting that the maker, I think, chose to leave it in color and let the monochrome be the subject itself. It looks a little more monochrome and digital than it does on the print. The print goes a little creamish color on the thick support beam. So it made me feel like it was left in color, just it's a monochromatic scene because of the neutral bridge color and the cables and the dark sky. That said, I find myself thinking this would be a really great graphic background for some text or magazine, or just a high impact cover art for a book. Very, very interesting, very sophisticated eye that created that asymmetrical composition. So that is cables. 4 for composition, 5 for impact, 4 for technical.
Cables by John Lepper, 13 points.
And I want you to go back and do that when there's a moon that you can get in the background.
Dark Shadows.
Okay, I gotta go back and check my notes. I just remember how much I loved the print. Technically, it's extremely well done. The tone scale of this print is beautiful. The only thing, I mean, this screen image does not do the image justice, because the print is just richer than what you see here. The only thing is there's really no place for my eye to rest. And so I found myself wanting a little sandbird, sandpiper, or a seagull in the sky, particularly right there would be nice, or even up here, or even an airplane jet flying through the clouds, just something to hold my eye in this place, or a little kid with a shovel and a bucket to make a sandcastle running on the beach. It's a very, very wonderful tone image that just needs that place for me to settle my eye. So dark shadows, 5 for composition, 3 for impact. So I want to clarify. The composition is extremely well done. There's just there's another element that I wish was there, and that's affecting for me the impact of it, because I don't have anywhere to hang my eye. And then technically it's 5.
Dark Shadows by Elaine Giadoni, 13 points. Departures.
Okay. So this is where if I was talking to this person, I'd ask them to circle the magic. What is the magic in this scene? And I will tell you that for me, the real magic is down in here, where you have feet moving and shadows and various tonalities here. There might be magic here, but I don't know. It's too far away when you see 2 people interacting. But we don't have the magic highlighted. It's just not strong enough. It's just kind of like, yeah, I recognize this. I remember taking trains in Europe. And so I find myself saying, what do I really see? This is what I call a butt shot. I'm looking at a butt, I'm looking at a butt, and I'm looking at people in a far distance. So I like the tonality, the beautiful tonality. I think that's really what probably caught the eye, is just the rich gray tones and values here. So I find myself thinking that maybe the photographer needed to get down on their hands and knees, and maybe on their belly, and really focus on the tonality and the foot going down this gentle and varied slope. Because you see a little speed bump right in here, and this beautiful gray scale, and maybe they need to get lower so they could really highlight the magic of feet traveling on this pathway. Or they need to come down here and focus just the framing of the train and the one individual with multiple cars. But it's just by itself, it's maybe too much, and yet not enough of anything to have impact. This is departures.
Yes.
Yeah. 3 for composition, 3 for impact, 5 for technical. It's exquisite print, tone-wise.
Departures by Tamara McGee, 11 points. Through the Maze, and this looks like it's IR. Infrared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, when I hear the first 2 letters of my name, I start, waiting for the 3rd letter. Okay. So this is one where compositionally it is graphically beautiful. You've got many layers. You're shooting through layers here. You've got this foreground element that's framing this water here. You've got the geese in here. It's got kind of a woodblock etching feel to it because of the deep contrast. This is blown out on this screen compared to the print. Although I will tell you, the problem I have with this print is, and I know it's infrared, but this area here is washed out a little too far and it's out of focus. And this area is in focus. Here it just gets lost. So we're right at the edge of our focus right here. And I've wanted to hold more focus. Technically, it could be a little more precise. Couldn't be better framed. I think it's compositionally maybe Maybe come in a little bit from the bottom so we're not distracted by this texture here, because I love the reflection over on the bottom right. I don't know if you can't see my mouse probably, but I'm just looking at the lower right area here, and maybe crop in just slightly up from the bottom just to pull that in a little bit. Biggest issue is I'm bothered by the lack of focus in this front area here. It just kind of looks like smudge a little bit. But beautiful, beautiful image. So we are now, what's the name of this one?
Through the maze.
Yes. I know. Oh, there it is. It's very top. 5 for composition, 4 for impact, 3 for technical.
Through the Maze by Dorothy Detler, 12 points. Trees of Glacier.
Well, that sun certainly makes me think the glaciers are melted. It's a lovely idea. I always like looking at these tall trees and looking up at them and photographing them. This is a hot, blurry mess right here in terms of it. Just if we could just change our camera angle to get that tree trunk in front of the hottest spot, then we might actually get a flare of light that would create a kind of that beautiful, dreamy starburst effect, as opposed to just the white blob in there. So to me, I would just move over slightly and try to get that sun tucked behind this one tree trunk in here. Trees of Glacier, 4 for composition, 3 for impact, 3 for technical.
Trees of Glacier by Kim Barbie, 10 points. And this is our last picture of the evening, Waiting.
Oh, you're in for it now. I'm gonna spend excess time because we have extra time. No, just kidding. The print is lovely in terms of the tone range. It's rich, richer than this. This is actually a little flat compared to the print. It's really got that sense of enclosure with all this chain link wrapping around you. It's strong linear perspective. And we've seen a lot of that tonight, several images with strong linear perspective. But finally, we have actually something at the end of the tunnel. And we get this really nice shape, kind of a L shape going on here. And I hope the maker stood there a while and maybe fired off 20 frames, waiting for that dog to make some other gesture with the head that might really make it just go to the next step, because that's a beautiful, yeah, it looks like it could be a Malamute or a really large Husky. It's an exquisite animal, but we're losing the profile, and we get the profile of the handler, but we get this kind of awkward squatting position, which makes you wonder if it's a female dog urinating. And I just don't want to wonder about those things. I want to just have a little bit more of a clean profile of this animal. Lovely, lovely image. It does remind me of early landscape paintings from around the late 18th century, that quite often this vast landscape, you'd see a human and an animal, and maybe it's a dog on its hind legs taking a dump, as the artist put a little humor of everyday life moment. And so when you're out walking your dog and you see somebody else's dog doing their business, you just have that sense of, oh yeah, I know how embarrassing that feels, but it's life. And I think that's what the artist was trying to show in that. And I think if the maker was trying to show those moments, that's great. I just want to see a little bit more of that profile. Okay, Waiting, 4 for composition, 4 for impact, and 4 for technical.
Okay. All righty. Oh, come on. Waiting by Kevin Watt, 12 points. And that's what we have left. I mean, that's all we have. We were missing a couple according to some people that have sent some messages. So
Yes, I had at least one other print that wasn't in your folder.
can we talk about it and score it, and I'll add it.
Yeah, let me pull it out.
Hello, I'm missing 2 prints,
You're missing two.
both black and white.
David, are you hearing that?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay,
Did you give them to John, Tim?
Yes. Yeah, I left them
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Oh,
they made it to Iris, so I don't know what the problem is.
Well,
well,
I had some prints that didn't make it into into these folders. So for example, I had
Did
this
you up?
image.
does it have a title, Ira?
Yes, Grounded by Fog.
Okay,
Print night too, there were a number of prints that David had the prints, but not the digitals. So I'm wondering if there's something going on with WordPress that needs an adjustment.
Did people do the uploads?
Yep. I went back, last week one of them was mine, and I went back and double checked. And it was in there and it was uploaded correctly too.
Okay.
So I added this to my list.
Same for me.
okay, let's let Ira share.
So I added this to my list because I had the print and I had the name of it. And I thought it was a very nice example of minimalism. You got a very clean image. You got a very strong focal point where my eye can really settle.
Ira, can you hold that back a little bit farther so we can see the whole print?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's a very nice example of minimalism, and it certainly has a leading line. It's got a little bit of fog, and it's got a cormorant, I'm guessing. And so it's lovely. I do find myself thinking that I either wanted a car with headlights coming towards it to add a little more dramatic storytelling, or I just wanted it to be maybe cropped in a little bit tighter to just really settle in on the bird, because it's the graceful line of the bird, the organic line versus the geometric line of the bridge elements and the yellow striping. To come in just a little bit tighter would help celebrate the beautiful organic line of that bird.
Okay.
And I gave this one a 4 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 4 for technical.
And who was this by?
Tim McGee.
Tim or Tamara?
Tim.
Okay, so why, anybody who, there's one of your prints that didn't make it, send me the title and the category it belongs in, and we'll do it next time.
So I might have a couple others.
I do have a couple of others.
Okay, and so what I'm doing, David, is I'm adding them to the score sheet.
Okay, but send it to me anyway, so I can check up and find out, see if I can figure out why they didn't make it into the listing.
Perfect.
You see this one? This
Yes,
one's
we have a
titled
title.
Reaching for the Sky.
No light shining on it.
Yeah,
Okay,
my monitor's reflecting off the glossy print. You're gonna love this print in person. It's absolutely beautiful. Let me see here. This is. Oh, I guess I didn't write my scores down on this one because it was like, oh, I didn't have this on the list and I wasn't sure what was going on. It's an exquisite print. It's got beautiful organic lines. It's got nice minimalism. The only thing I could think the maker could possibly think about doing would be to put a 10-stop neutral density filter and do a long time exposure to where the clouds would actually move across and blur in the background. because there's just something timelessness in this wood and its twisting and gnarly quality to it. So I found myself thinking of Michael Kinna and how that might just really pop this out, because it's just so rich and wonderful. The whites, the highlights are maybe a slightly burned out. It's a very delicate, but again, if we had that cloud slow motion moving, it would gray out that sky and give better separation for the tree, the white bark on that tree. But it's a beautiful example of minimalism and proportion. I mean, this just looks so massive. And so I'm going to give it a 5 for composition. I'm going to give it a 5 for impact and a 3 for technical.
All right, reaching for the sky. And do we have an artist?
Tim Lesser.
Okay, 10, 13 points. Tim, Reaching for the Sky by Tim Lesser, 13 points. Did you have any others, Ira?
I do. Yes. Another one by Tim Lesser.
And what do we have for a title?
Contrast.
Okay.
And this is a tone study. I mean, it's just a beautiful example of rich tones that darker in the foreground, leading to a misty mountain, jagged peaks in the background. It's really exquisite it's the paper that it's printed on. It has just a nice softness to it. And so you had the high gloss on the previous image, and here we have more of almost a velveteen quality to it that just really adds to a richness to it. I do find myself, the only real critique I have of this is two things. One, there's a contour merger right there where the foreground dark rock, the outline of it merges with the outline of the peaks in the background, which I can't really tell if it's snow or just they were just a different material that are just lighter, because it's presented almost like a white landscape against a darker, and so it makes you think that it might be snow, but I'm not confident that it is. It just could be. It doesn't look like snow. It just looks like a paler form of granite, and this is maybe more lava like rock in the foreground. This is where a geologist would do a better job critiquing this image than I am. So I find myself wanting to know if we could probably raise the camera angle just enough to tuck that down underneath that contour to really keep that in there. And then I found myself wondering if, because it's really a formal study, the proportion, I found myself wanting a little bit taller proportion, more like an 8:10 proportion, just to really solidify that formal quality to it, because it is, everything about it is handled so expertly that I feel like it deserves just a little bit more uprightness to it, because what's happening is in this very narrow wide, it's pulling me to this part of the frame, which becomes problematic because I'm leaving the frame where the magic is right over here. And so I just want to keep the eye in that frame just a little bit more. Scores, I would give this, I'm going to give this a 3 for composition, a 4 for impact, and a 5 for technical.
Okay. 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. And do we have an artist on there?
Yes, that's also Tim Lesser. And these are the only other prints that I can remember that weren't in the digital folders.
Okay, so this is Contrast by Tim Lesser, 12 points. Yeah.
So are
So
we missing any other prints? Steve, is there one of yours missing still? Am I muted?
well,
Yeah, I've got one missing too, David. Both a print and the digital didn't make it, but I did drop the print off and I did get the upload, showed that the upload went.
What's the title on it?
The title is Coming or Going.
Okay.
Hold that thought. Let's see here. Actually, I scored that one. Okay, what's the maker's name?
Kevin,
Kevin Watt.
Was it in a file folder or a plastic bag?
I believe
Kevin,
it was in a plastic bag.
Plastic bag.
So I did score that one, so it must be here.
I thought we already saw. We did see that.
what was it called?
Coming and going. Coming and going. Colleen, did you have a coming and going on your score sheet?
No,
No, but I have it on my score sheet. But I'm not seeing the print all of a
oh,
sudden.
and David, I didn't get this score sheet until about 5 o'clock tonight. I mean, it's pretty clear that Dennis really wants out. I'm
Yeah, I
anxious for the new system to get going.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to spend some money.
I think so. I'm going to ask him to have them to me by Tuesday. Because if the judge has the prints by the weekend, there's no reason why this shouldn't be set up and ready to go. So, and it drives me crazy to be kind of on a last minute whatever.
Well, let's see what we can do about it.
Okay,
Well,
so-
I'll ask Dennis. I'll tell him I need to have him by Tuesday and see what he can do.
okay, here's coming and going. I found it.
Bless your heart, Ira.
So it's a train track image, train track curving around a corner right here. These are challenging images because they lead you to a dead end in that you can't see around the corner. And yet we're always mesmerized by train tracks and we always imagine the places they take us. So and the maker did a nice job of framing with the leaves on the side, the leaves down below. So it's really kind of couched. The tracks are in between and cradled by leaves here, and then a stand of timber on the other side, and a little bit of atmospheric depth, of fogginess in the background. And you do see one signal, well, actually you see two power poles in the distance as well. So you do get that sense of human intervention through there. The print's a little dark. The shadow values could be pulled up and add a little more texture in those shadows. I think the maker's trying to keep the highlights, and I agree with that, but I think we can open up the shadows to add a little more rich texture in that. The scores I gave it were 4 for composition, 3 for impact, and again, it's the same challenge of where does my eye stay? And the title kind of gives I'm coming and going in and out of the frame. So 3 for impact and a 3 for technical.
It's 10. All right, so coming or going by Kevin Watt, 10 points.
Steve, were we still missing one of yours?
Which Steve?
You, Whitaker.
No,
Did you
no,
say you were missing one?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Is there anybody else that we're missing one? Are we up to, everybody's up, done now? So we'll take that as a yes.
Okay. All
Thank you,
right,
Ira.
You're welcome.
thank you.
So that,
Ira, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Have a great week, and thank you for all the great work. You guys are, it's really exciting to be around a group of such a passionate photographers that are doing some really great work.
Hey, Ira, I have a question for you. Can
Yeah.
you tell us about the rigging in your background? What's going on back there?
Let's see here. I've got a camera stand with a Nikon D10 with my 70-200, and next to it is a wooden 5x7 field camera, and in the background is what's called a jib crane with a D850 connected to an Atomos Ninja recording monitor with a 2 terabyte drive that I can shoot 4K video, for unlimited amount of time, only limited by the storage on the hard drive.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Very cool.
This is my studio, and I do a blend of cinematography and still photography in the studio. It's we live in the greatest times to be in photographic imagery that have ever been, because the lighting gear that I can use for cinematography works really well for still photography as well. LED cinema lights are fantastic. I still have all my strobes. I've got a track light system with a softbox up top. I've got backgrounds and other fixtures as well. So this is really my playground out here.
Wow. I'm
That's very
jealous.
cool. Thank you for sharing that with us, Ira.
What's that?
I said very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome. You are so welcome.
So let's not forget, next week, Wednesday, we need digital uploads for the next digital night, which is the following week after that. And the subject is machinery.
Our machines. Okay.
And then also, if you want to see the prints, they'll be down at the Canon office probably by Monday or Tuesday. And we could do a couple, if people want to have it, we could kind of schedule a time for people to come down, or you can come down, whatever works for you. Just come on down and take a look at them.
Okay.
That's assuming somebody sends me an address to where to take them.
John, I think John will pick them up for me, Ira.
Yeah, I was gonna text you and figure out a time to come and pick them up. What's
Oh,
best? for
okay,
you.
that'd be great.
Okay,
I'd
Yeah.
still like the address in case I want to stop by.
It's 145 South Cannon.
But you'll send them.
It's
Thank
right
you.
across, it's right across the street from the Italia Trattoria.
Latrotti, yeah, I can't say it.
Trattoria or whatever, it's Trattoria, I think. But, and then also the Elk is right there next to it as well.
You know, the prints were just so neat last time, and a few people came down and saw them, but I think it would be a real treat for anybody who can get down there and see them. It was so neat to see two whole, what are they called? Stands full of the prints, and they were really neat. I enjoyed having them around.
So if you do come, don't come before noon. That way we'll be sure to be there. We're generally there by about 10 o'clock or so, but at noon or after, and we're usually there till 5. And if you want to come later, just give me a call and we can stay a little later. So again, Ira,
Thank you.
as always, I thought you did a wonderful job. We really enjoy having you as a judge.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much,
Learned a
Bob.
lot.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Ira.
For your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Have a
Night.
great evening. Good week.